This hot, this the spot, there it is pod.com. We're interviewing the best comedians, so tune in quick and get your ears receiving them. We talking about life and laughter stream right to you, from the microphone right to your home, dude. Side note, this might get embarrassing, but no, don't sweat, yo, cause there it is.
Welcome to the There It Is podcast, a podcast for comedians, creators, and dreamers. I'm your host, Jason Farr. Let's do this. I hope you're dancing along to the music. I dance along to the music while I'm getting ready for this intro. It's fun. It's fun and funky. So I have a very fun episode for you. Last week's episode, though, already causing high drama, little controversy. That's right, I said controversy like Jimmy Fallon. Is that triggering anything for you? Are you having a tough time because Jimmy Fallon was easy on Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump? You know he's the guy who brought beer pong to late night television. Why are you expecting him to be Bill O'Reilly all of a sudden? I don't understand. That was so silly, right? I mean, why were people... Jimmy Fallon's just a nice guy who's just here to have fun. I mean, you can not like his style, but why are you so mad at Jimmy Fallon, of all people, for not being hard-hitting when you're not talking about people like Bill O'Reilly who get stuff wrong? Like, I don't know if you know this, but you should be more mad at Bill O'Reilly. If your life is so great that you're complaining about Jimmy Fallon, well, God bless you, but you sound real silly. Okay, last week's episode, we had the Greenville Comedy Marathon panel discussion, and it aired, and I enjoyed the episode. There were a couple things I quibbled with, but didn't bother to say anything. But some people got back to me, and you can leave feedback, and you can engage in the discussion on Twitter and Facebook at There It Is Pod, or on the website, thereitispod.com. But some people contacted me directly because of the impression they felt was given of No Expectations Comedy. Now, I am a co-founder and member of No Expectations Comedy. I help run the open mic that runs here every Monday in Greenville, South Carolina. The take back that these listeners got was that the atmosphere at No Expectations show is negative and harsh. And they disagree with that. And I would disagree with that as well. That is not the point or purpose of No Expectations Comedy. And that is also not what we provide. I think we provide a great room for people to perform. It's a room that some dignitaries have come through, like the likes of Rory Scovel or Herbie Gill or Joe Zimmerman. They've performed there a couple of times. And they like the room too. And we run a good show. We run a good room. We've been told that. It is not this harsh, negative atmosphere that was, I guess, the take back that some people had. And I just want to clear that up. If that was the impression that you got, don't have that impression. It's called No Expectation. So you shouldn't expect anything positive or negative. It's a room for you to go up and work on material. It's a room for you to start out in. A lot of people have started out in the comedy theater there at Coffee Underground. So if you were one of the listeners who had a take back or an impression that our room is harsh or negative, that is not the case. I just want to clear that up. The truth is, it's a good room and it's a positive vibe, not a negative one. Speaking of positive vibes, this interview is super duper fun. I have on Ayden Mayeri. She is an actor and writer, and she's very funny. She's studied at UCB and IO out in LA, and she's appeared in commercials, a web series called Harder Than It Looks, and she's in tonight's season premiere of New Girl on Fox at 8:30, so definitely check that out. We have a giggly good time in this conversation, talking about getting into the industry, the work she's done, and buzzsaws. That's going on in the background. It was pretty funny. I'm already giggling. Let's just get to the interview. Here it is, my chat with Ayden Mayeri. So you were in Pittsburgh recently, weren't you, doing some work?
No. So it got pushed. I'm going to Pittsburgh tomorrow.
Oh, what's this for?
This I actually don't know that I'm allowed to talk about because I signed an NDA, but it's a TV thing.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, I'm excited about it.
Yeah, and you were just on, or you're about to be on, because it hasn't aired yet, New Girl, right?
Yeah, it comes out the 20th. That was so fucking fun. Do you watch New Girl? Like, honestly, do you watch New Girl?
I haven't watched much TV. I watched when, just because I've been...
Because you're like a busy person with a real life?
I don't know if I'd say a real life, but I just do comedy at night enough times that I get too busy to watch a lot of television, so I'm always catching stuff late.
Dude, I'm like addicted to television. I want to learn from you. I need to get, like, it's bad.
Well, I am pretty addicted to it as well. I just have a lot on my DVR.
Yeah.
So I made it a point to watch the Prince one when it originally aired of New Girl.
Yes.
And I really like a lot of the people who are on there. So I know it's a good show.
It is. It's one of my favorite shows. Yeah. Awesome. So that was like, I've auditioned for smaller parts. Like, I probably auditioned 3 or 4 times for other things that I haven't gotten. And I was always like, oh, I'll just never be on New Girl. But I fucking love that show. And then this worked out so well.
That's so great. That's a really good outcome for that, to, have smaller roles that didn't work out and then to get a bigger role.
Yeah, and it also reminds you to be like, okay, you don't know what's going to happen next. Stop. Like, I wouldn't have been able to play a role like this if I had booked one of the smaller roles.
Right. Oh, right.
So it just kind of works out.
It's not like Law and Order where they'll cast the same person.
Right. No, it's not like that. No, they won't do that. So it was very like, what is that saying that people have on their pillows? Life's rejections are God's protections.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever heard that? I think it's very cute. It's very cute. But that's how I feel. It's like every time you're like, oh, this didn't work out. Why not? Boo me. It's like, well, you don't know what's going to happen.
Right. You never know. What's the story? Harrison Ford was doing carpentry work on the set because George Lucas said, I don't want to use him for this too. Just like I used him for my last movie. But they had him read and,
It's just those, you can't ever, like, you didn't know where your life, 3 years ago, if someone was like, predict what's going to happen in 3 years, there's no way.
Right.
You would have known where you are now. Oh, gosh.
Yeah, that's totally true. Because right now, I'm about to move at the end of February. I'm moving to New York City. And
really?
3 years ago, yeah.
Oh my God, congratulations. That's a big deal.
It is, yeah. And 3 years ago, I had no idea that this is where I'd be,
Right. Right, and you oh God, life is just crazy. Weird shit happens all the time.
All the time, and there is no... I understand frustrations, but there really isn't much worth in living in that frustration because you don't know, something great could be right around the corner.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like if you kind of give into that, like, it's very short-sighted to be like, well, today was bad, so now everything's bad. It's like, it's all just part of this bigger thing, as woo-woo as that is. But like, why, if you let yourself dip into that, then you're just attracting that into your life. And you're just always going to feel like everything sucks.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've had this great stuff that's been happening lately. When did you get started in acting work?
Well, I would say, like, when I was a kid, I made movies with my friends and sketches and music videos and all this stuff. Loved it. Did a lot of theater. Then I went through puberty and dropped absolutely everything creatively interesting to me and just wanted to get drunk and meet older guys. Which is a bummer.
Older guys.
Well, really any guys, but the guys in my grade were too, like, scared of us. So, like, older guys that were, like, hanging around my hometown after high school would be, like... Oh, so
the dangerous guys.
Yeah, they'd be, like, drunk driving us to parties. Nightmare. But yeah, and that's all I wanted to do. And it was like, high school, like everything, you're just like so worried. Like I stopped bringing sandwiches to school because I didn't want people to see me eating a sandwich. Like I was just so worried about what everybody fucking thought.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And like now.
Where were you living where did you grow up?
I grew up in Northern California.
Okay.
So like Sonoma County, Napa area. Mm-hmm. Someone is like cutting hedges outside my house? Is that?
That's totally fine.
You can't hear it?
I could hear it, but it's fine.
Damn it.
It's not.
Should I go tell him I'm doing a podcast and he needs to shut the fuck up? No. I'm sorry. I'm like swearing a lot. Is it like you have?
I don't. I let people be themselves. So.
Okay, cool.
As long as you're being honest about who you are, and you're swearing, then it's fine.
I mean it all. Yeah. So I grew up in Northern California, which was a very chill and lovely place to grow up. Mm-hmm. It also was like, I don't know, I just lost all creativity when I became a teenager. And then, well, this is kind of like a bummer to talk about, but I don't want to bring down your podcast. But the reason I ended up pursuing acting was because I was in college studying poli-sci, being like, that's a practical thing. Like, I can't be an actor. That's insane. Mm-hmm. And doing like acting on the side for fun. And then I was 20 and my high school sweetheart at the time suddenly died. Oh, wow. And that was like, I didn't know what was going on. I was also 20 and like we were partying all the time and I didn't know how to like process what was happening.
Right.
And I remember coming back from his funeral and being in college and like just acting like nothing had happened, but everything was different. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, okay. I had a really easy childhood. So like I never lost anybody close to me, And when that happens, all of a sudden you're like, oh, that can happen?
Right.
I could just poof and disappear. And if that happened tomorrow, like, why am I doing poli-sci? I don't want to do poli-sci. I want to be an actor. Mm-hmm. And so then that changed the direction of everything. And I ended up moving to Orange County and doing a theater program and then coming out to LA. All that to say, almost 5 years ago, really started like getting into the hustle 4 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is an interesting experience to have to push you in that direction, but it is, I guess it goes back to the phrase you were saying that is about what life throws at you. What's that phrase? It was life's rejections are God's protections. Right. Well, okay, it wasn't a rejection, I guess, but
you're right, because honestly, obviously, if I could have anything different for his family, I'd want him to be alive. He was a wonderful person. I wish he was still alive. Right. But to take something good out of that, it like liberated me in a way that I don't know I ever would have if something horrible hadn't happened to me like that.
That's true. That's an interesting thing about life. Sometimes I think, not to get too crazy or something,
philosophical.
Yeah, exactly. But the bad things that happen in our lives shape us just as much as the good things. And
yeah,
I think
if not more, honestly.
If not more, yeah, very true. And I think a lot of times it can be easy to say, I don't want all these bad things that have happened to have happened. But in some of those cases, I wouldn't be where I was if the bad things didn't happen.
I 100%. Anytime like something, I get rejected or I don't get my way and something, I'm always like, okay, what can I learn out of this? Mm-hmm. And I think going through that built my character and made me stronger or whatever.
Right. There's that phrase, whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. But I think it also makes you realize how strong you were to begin with.
Oh, I love
that. Didn't realize it. Yeah, I think there's some tough things I've been through that I thought, I am handling this. Where did that come from? It's not that I've gotten through it and it's made me stronger. I was strong in a way I had no idea I was strong.
You like tapped into something in yourself.
Right.
Yeah, that's so true. I remember being like 21 and some of my friends being like, oh my God, like, I can't believe how well you're handling your boyfriend dying. Like, I could never do that. Like, I would fall apart. And I'm like, honestly, that's what you think when you hear crazy shit. You're like, I could never. But then it happens and you're like, well, I either like also die myself and just give up, or like I fucking make it through this.
Right. Right. What else are you going to do? You have one option,
Yeah.
And then there's that weird thing of just some of the greatest things that have happened in my life only happen because of bad things that happen.
Totally. Like pushes you in a way that you wouldn't have pushed yourself.
Right. Or it just puts you in a set of circumstances that you wouldn't have had if it
Right,
wasn't
like I
for-
never would have met these people or gone to that party or whatever.
Right. Right. I would not have gone to the college I had gone to or moved to where I moved to if it wasn't for whatever happening when I was a child or something. You know, like it's maybe you're right. Maybe it is like shapes you even more than the good things do.
I think so. I really do. And I mean, that's comedy, right? It's just tragedy plus time.
Absolutely, yeah. So you have this transition in your life. You, as you said, you start hustling into the comedy and the acting world. How did you get your start? Now, didn't you go to UCB and IO?
Yeah, so I had like, I was like classically trained in dramatic theater. And then you get to LA and everyone went to theater school and nobody cares. P.S. Didn't graduate. I left 20 units short. Credits, units, I don't know what they are.
Some of those credits are just knowing if it's credits or units.
Right. There's a whole class. Is this a credit? Is this a unit? And also, best decision ever. Because, like, if you want to be an actor or writer, nobody cares where your degree is from. Going to college helps with those connections and helps build your voice and teaches you things. But, like, the degree itself, irrelevant.
Right. No one's, that's... When I was in college, I was a theater minor, and I remember a buddy who was in the theater department was saying it's totally pointless because it's not like anyone's going to hire you because you have that degree. And it was like, we'll hire you for this acting job because you have a degree from such and such place. Like, that's not how it works.
Definitely not. If all they want to see is experience.
Yeah, can you do
and the
work?
only way you can get experience is just going there and showing up and doing stuff for free for like 5 years. But yeah, so I came over to LA and I was taking a very dramatic, like Strasberg type method-y acting class, which was basically just like go on stage, talk about how you were molested as a kid, and that's acting. Like it was very self-indulgent.
Okay.
And just kind of a nightmare. There's this whole thing in LA, I'm sure it goes on in New York too, where there's a lot of acting teachers that are very guru-y, and they kind of act like God, and they have all these pupils that are like emotionally addicted to them. Like it's like art therapy. They're like in these classes being told like, well, you need to be here and you need to do the work and you need to talk about all of your issues on stage and like work on your issues, and then they end up staying there for 10 years just like stuck in their issues, and they're never working. It's not applicable to working as an actor.
Yeah, it's great if you're using acting like yoga or something where it's a thing you do on the side from your real job. Then sure, you can stay at a particular institute and have that outlet. But if you're trying to get work, it's not really the best outlet.
Yeah, and you're totally right. Like, not to knock any of those techniques, because I think for very heavy roles, for theater, especially if you have a year to work on a scene, like some of those people would bring the same scene in for like 7 months. It's like, okay, again, like if you're doing a movie or a TV show, that's completely useless. But I totally get it as a useful thing. I just think there was a little bit of a abuse of power from the people that own the studio. Just sucking these kids dry financially. Because there was also a rule, like, it's like $200 a month, and if you leave for a month, and because you can't afford it, you're allowed to leave if you get a job, but if you leave for any other reason, you're kicked out for a year.
Oof.
So everyone was so scared to get kicked out, they were just going broke trying to stay in this program.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, it was gross. And it just was culty, you know what I mean? So anyway, I was getting a lot of migraines doing that, and then I don't know why, but I decided to take a class at IO, and that was also one of the reasons I knew that the other class I was taking was bad, is because when I was like, oh, I'm taking improv classes, they were like, what? You're gonna what did they say? That's gonna mess with the work here. You can't take other classes. And it was like, that's like the definition of a cult, is when they're like, you can't talk to other people, you can't do other things.
I love getting super nerdy and artsy about process and technique, but there is no sense in that statement to me. You know, like I don't see how it could possibly affect the work you're doing. Right.
If nothing, it's going to make you so much better. Like improv helps everything.
Absolutely. It makes you so much more present if you're doing it right.
Yeah, totally. And they just kind of accused me of not being a serious a real artist and all this shit. And I was just like, okay, bye. And then I went to IO, had a great time, made a web series, went to UCB, also had a great time. And I was like, oh, this is like comedy. Like, it's comedy all the way. That's what I want to do.
Mm-hmm. And so that reminded you of the videos you were doing as a kid?
Yes. And I think that's like the weird thing about becoming an adult and becoming your like truest, most honest self is that like you are just tapping into the real you that was there at 9 years old that got, I don't know, buried through puberty and trying to be cool in your early 20s and all the stuff.
Right. I can't remember if it was Jill Bernard or Greg Tavares that said that when we're kids, we know how to do improv. We know what we're doing. It's life doing whatever life does to us. It makes us forget. And we start having more of a filter. And it's true.
Right. You become self-aware and insecure, which, you know, you need to do to survive. But I think that, like, I'm starting to accept that, like, as an artist, you have to be honest with who you are. And that sounds really self-indulgent and lame, but that's part of our job.
I think it's healthier for any person to be honest with who they are. But I also would say when it comes to performance art, but particularly comedy, you have to have two things. Not much of a filter.
Yeah.
And you can't be polite. Like, you can be polite you can be nice to people, but
be kind to people, yeah.
Right, but politeness does not work in comedy.
No. And it, honestly, like, okay, manners are important, right? Especially in business, but like truly just like biting your tongue and not speaking your mind and being like ultra polite about everything doesn't really get anybody anywhere.
Right.
Even if you're not a comedian. Right,
exactly. That's why I think there's the whole political correctness discussion. And you think like polite is the root word there. And I think political correctness is the wrong direction to go with the discussion. I don't think it's about politically correctness. I think it's more about being overly polite as opposed to being just honest. I think if people are being honest, that's better than trying to worry about people's feelings in certain situations. It sounds different than I mean it. Of course, you don't want to hurt people's feelings, but you don't want to withhold the truth because you're overly worried about people's feelings.
Right, because you're worried about what people think and how they react. And and that's the problem, is that it kind of is overshot with the whole Trump thing, right? People are like, oh, he speaks his mind, he's honest. Like, no, he's a savvy, like, celebrity politician person.
Right.
He's not being true and honest.
Right.
That's not that. That's just trying to stir shit up.
Yeah. It's not like getting to the true core of an issue. That's not what he's doing. He's just being rude and crazy. Because it's shock. His
voice in the room, and getting attention.
Right. It's why Howard Stern got so far in the mayoral race. Doesn't that sound weird?
Mayoral. Sounds like my last name. Mayoral.
Mayeri. Yeah.
Mayeri. I don't know. The East Coast pronounces it different than the West Coast. It's a whole family dispute.
Oh, okay. How do you say it?
I say Mayeri. But my East Coast family says Mayeri.
Oh, okay. I was thinking Mayeri when I just saw it, and then I think you have it written how to pronounce it. Because I'm thinking John Mayer with an I in the end, so I was like Mayeri.
Yeah, it's like Mayeri, whatever. It's whatever you feel, really. It's open to interpretation.
But your first name is pronounced Ayden. No, I'm kidding.
No. Everyone that doesn't speak English as a first language says Ayden. I think there's something about AY in other languages. It's always pronounced I.
What nicknames, this is totally off topic and we'll get back on topic, what nicknames do you have?
AIDS.
AIDS is the name? Okay. I was thinking Ayden.
Ooh! Oh my God, I love that. How has nobody said that?
How it works so much with your personality.
What? I'm straight up from the Yay area, and no one has ever said Ayden. What? That's amazing.
Well, that's what I'll call you, Ayden. Because I'm like, yay, it's Ayden, Ayden.
I'm taking that. I'm running with it.
Sweet.
That's great.
Let's circle back. So in your time at UCB and IO, what did you glean from, what was your take back? from your time there?
Like, what did I get out of that?
Yeah, what'd you get out of it, and how did it help move your career along?
Well, Jason, I would say okay. It was really, really, really good because it taught me the importance of creating your own content. And that's such a thrown around phrase and so lame, but just to say write a sketch, make it. It created a community. So I instantly had other people that were eager to make things. And we're kind of at my level. We're all kind of scrappy, being like, we want to get seen and we want to do something. Let's do something together. And that was great. It really propelled me to make stuff. And the thing about UCB is it's so cool. It's such a cool kids club. I never got far into it. Most of my friends are UCB people. I go to a lot of UCB shows. I've done shows there, but I'm not on one of the in-house teams or part of the pro crew that is really cool there. And I debated about that for a while. I mean, I don't even think they'd have me. It's very hard to get into a lot of their stuff, but
yeah, there's so many people.
Yeah, it's oh my God, so many people. It's very, very hot over here. But the point of all of it, because I was do I audition for the Herald teams? Do I do it? Because that takes years to get onto a Herald team, to audition a million times. And then I was like, well, why do I want to do it? I want to be on a Herald team so I get practice and get seen, maybe get reps and work with other people. And then I was like, well, why don't I just make stuff, make a web series, make sketches, perform a lot. And then I did get agents, and yeah, that was the thing. That was the takeaway from making a web series was I think at the time I was like, well, what if it gets sold as a TV show and it could be all these things? And it's yeah, that could happen. But the biggest thing was it took my my team to the next level. It's I got good agents and managers out of it.
Oh, great. I think there's a lot of value in that, because I do believe a lot of people are going particularly the UCB route and trying to get on a house team, but it's hard to get on a house team. I mean, famously, Abby Jacobson and Alana Glazer didn't get on a house team. They were saying on an interview, we didn't get on a house team at UCB, and that ended up not being the thing for us. So we started creating our own stuff, which is exactly what you did.
Totally.
It seems to me the best choice, regardless of where you are, UCB, Ohio. It doesn't matter where you are. You could be in Iowa.
Ohio, yeah.
As long as you are working and trying to create stuff, that seems to be more important than trying to climb the ladder of a particular scene of comedy.
That's a really good point. I think it's really dangerous to put all of your emphasis, to think that there's only one way. When I transferred to theater school, and they had this BFA program that was very, very competitive, and you start with 120 kids, and then after a couple years they cut it down, and then only 12 get accepted to the BFA. 12 people. And so the first round of cuts, I remember people were crying and they were devastated, and there were all these kids that were like, well, I wanted to be an actor, I guess I need to figure out a different career. And I was like, are you kidding?
Right.
This is one college, one state school that's just you're not in this program. Just do other acting, do something else.
Right. It makes so much more sense just to do something else. It's just like people going on American Idol and then they don't get asked to be on the show and they're sad. It's listen, you can sing anywhere.
Yeah, right. Then they're like, well, American Idol's the end all be all, so I guess I won't be a singer. It's
right.
What?
And even if you win on American Idol, you still got to know how to, not that you can do that anymore since the show doesn't exist, but I just mean, if you're on one of those shows, you still have to be able to create something that
right.
is
That's
marketable.
A platform. Yeah, it gets you so far. It gets you the reps, it gets you the doors opening, and then you have to hustle and be constantly rejected and fail a lot and get better and keep going.
Yeah. For me, I love improv. I love doing it. I want to do it, and I want to do stand-up so I can be good at it. I want to be good at comedy. But when it comes to my career, I want to create stuff. So I have to create stuff, and I have to get better at creating that stuff.
You have to go through that process of not... Have you seen that Ira Glass thing about taste?
Yeah. It's great, isn't it?
That's the best. It was so reassuring when I was like just starting out here, because I was like, there is a gap. It's like, you know what you want to create, and why can't you fucking do it? It's so annoying. But you just have to learn. You have to be a beginner, and you have to learn. Yeah.
Like, just start working, get better, and find a product for you to make that you want to use and keep doing. That seems to me to be the best thing for people to do. So you did that, you got agents out of it, and you started getting work. And you're in a Herbal Essence commercial, and you've been in a ton of stuff.
I mean, a ton is very much an overstatement. Also, like, take everything I say with a grain of salt, because I am very much not a successful person. But like, my career is starting, which is nice. But
well, I would say there's so many people who have gone to LA who haven't done half the stuff that you've done. And that's why I would say there is I think some fairness in saying you've had some success and you're doing well. You've done a lot of stuff.
Sure. If you like talked to me 5 years ago, I would be like, no way. Like, it's very exciting to get to do stuff. It's a lot of like 2 lines in a Zac Efron movie. Like, that's kind of my sweet spot these days. But yeah, I did do an Herbal Essences commercial where I was a mermaid, and that was really fun. And that was my first like I'd booked like a line in something here and there, but it was my first like really big job where it was, I mean, it's 15 seconds long, but it felt like a really big deal shooting it, you know?
Yeah. What was that experience like? You said it felt like a big deal. Was it because of the space and the set and how big it was, or what was making you feel that way?
Well, first of all, it's insane how much money they spend on commercials. Like, it's just dripping with money. It's so crazy. And the audition process was insane. It was like 3 auditions, and then when the 3rd audition, we were there for 3 hours, and they were just mixing and matching all of us. It felt like cheerleading tryouts. People were getting cut right and left. It was just like, oh my God. And then when we got to the set, they had, because we're in this lagoon, but they had constructed this 40 by 40 foot like fake like pool in a warehouse with rocks and fog and a giant fan, and it looked like a lagoon, and everyone was in the water. It was like this lukewarm bath. Like, our hairdressers in swim trunks, and the PAs have snorkel gear. Like, they had to be in the water with us. Wow. And it was just such a big production. You know, you have like Herbal Essences corporate people there, and then you also have the ad agency there, and then you also have all the creatives, like the director and producer and everyone. And there's monitors all over this huge warehouse, and everyone's sitting watching what you're doing, and you don't know what you're doing. And I'm just like standing in this pool with this giant sweeping crane camera in my face with this wind and these fake waves, and I'm supposed to be swimming, but I'm not allowed to get my hair wet, but it's half an inch above the water. And I can hear my voice echoing on a loop when they're replaying the takes for all like 100 people in this warehouse to watch. It was just like so much pressure.
Yeah.
I was like, this isn't terrible.
Oh, wow. So my question is, because I haven't done a commercial of that stature, but I've definitely done a couple of commercials where corporate people like Muckety Mucks were there, and they have interesting notes that they give. And
they're always fighting with the director, always.
I've been lucky enough that they weren't fighting, but people ask for certain things from you that as an actor might be kind of a weird choice. And other times, or they're asking you to do something and it's a fine choice, but it's just, it's not as easy to do as they seem to think it is. Yeah. And also one of the weird things too about commercial work is how fast you have to like be there and be in the moment and really be present. How do you manage getting odd notes and still being able to pull off a performance that's going to look good?
I mean, that's the tricky thing. I think when I did that commercial, it was so at the beginning of really understanding what kind of comedy I wanted to do. I mean, this was like a year ago. It's not that. Was it a year ago or was it 2 years ago? Ooh. But I mean, at that point, like that was the first, I didn't have a ton of experience. So it was kind of just like, I don't know, try to do what they say, but also try to be funny in my own way. Whereas now, I think some people are really good natural improvisers on set. I like to really go through my script beforehand and just come up with alts, like alt lines and alt jokes and my own stuff.
Me too.
So that, oh, you do?
Yeah, I like that too.
Yeah, I just want to go in prepared, like with ideas ready to go. And that way, if they're like, try something, because I've been caught off guard so many times and they're like, okay, now do whatever you want. Do something funny. And I'm like, oh shit, I didn't think about this at all.
Yeah. That happened to me once too, yeah. It's because then you're like, huh? I don't know.
Yeah, and then you're always terrible. I've never ever had someone say, now do whatever you want, when I wasn't prepared and it went well. There's never, if I think about it beforehand and then it seems very improvised and people are like, oh, she just came up with this. I'm like, no.
Nowadays, I can always come up with something on set that I couldn't have come up with before for whatever reason, but I try to come in with some other ideas.
Yeah, and I think a lot of comedians are really good at that. I'm not super good at it on the fly. I guess it's the pressure of the whole thing. The more comfortable I am, the easier it comes. But,
I see.
And that's a huge thing I'm starting to realize about acting. I think Meryl Streep said something about just learning to be more comfortable being you, and that comes with age, and that makes you a better actor. And so much, like, the only time I've really felt like I've done a good job is when I'm very relaxed and I'm very myself. And it's hard. It's almost impossible to be that when you're first starting out because there's so much pressure and you don't know how anything works.
Right. But that's why such big, successful actors are so confident or sometimes cocky. Because
they have to buy into their own, like, delusion.
They've been able to push out whatever force of personality they have. They can really get it out there because they're cocky enough to think that it should be out there. Whereas people like me, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I need to be out there.
Oh man. Oh, it's like it's a struggle. I wonder if I'll have this my whole life. But yeah, it's a constant struggle about putting, like, writing out there or just ideas on the internet, because that's also dangerous territory. But like,
tell me about it.
It's just, I mean, there was a lot of, well, who cares what I have to say? Who cares? Like, what am I doing? Am I so self-absorbed that I think anyone's interested? And then you just have to be like, whatever. I mean, I'm creating. I want to talk about these things. I'm in a position where I'm being paid to be an artist. Be an artist.
Yeah, that's fair. So you did a series called Harder Than It Looks, and that was like 4 years ago that you did that.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was about 4 years ago, and that was during, like, I was in an improv class, and my teacher at the time was like, let's make a web series together. And I was like, great. And it was very scrappy of us. Like, it cost us nothing. We shot in an apartment and on the street of the apartment, and pulled a lot of favors and had these amazing DPs, like young guys that had dropped out of film school because they were better than film school. They were like 21 at the time, just like making rigs. Like, they had cameras and then they'd be on a skateboard, and that was a version of a dolly kind of thing. Wow. It was cool. It was very fun. But also, looking back, I'm like, I didn't know what I was doing. Do you hear that outside? Is that driving you crazy?
It's not driving me crazy.
Is it ruining the interview?
No. I mean, it's just it is what it is.
Does it just sound like I'm using a chainsaw through the whole interview?
It doesn't sound like that. It sounds like people like Harrison Ford is next door doing carpentry again in his life.
Yeah, they're shooting Star Wars next door.
You did that. You created your own web series. Didn't you write your own short? I did do a short,
which is, I mean, we haven't done anything with it. That was just a fun thing that a few friends, we were like, let's make something. And then we also pulled a lot of favors, and also, like, just advice for people making stuff. I wrote myself into a corner because I literally wrote all of the things you're not supposed to write in a script. I had us smoking cigarettes in a car in the desert. So we were shooting in above 100-degree weather, and I don't smoke cigarettes, but I had to smoke a million because we're doing a million takes, and it's so hard to shoot in a car because it's such a small space. And it was just like, what was I thinking? I did this to myself. No one made me do this. But it was fun. It was really fun.
That's funny. So people who are wanting to get into the industry and get some of the fun gigs that you've gotten, take us through that process of you've got your agents and now you're really going for it in your career. Oh, thank you.
I'm trying to protect you from the sound. Does it help?
I don't think so, but it's really sweet that you're trying. Trying to cover the mic. But what is that process like in LA?
Getting agents?
Right. These days. What can the kids learn from your experience?
All those hip kids. The thing that everybody told me, which I was so annoyed by, because is like create your own stuff. And I think you kind of go, a lot of people leave theater school being like, I'm going to get discovered as an actor. And it's like, that doesn't happen anymore. It just doesn't. You have to be a creator.
Yeah.
Maybe for like models, you end up being on a CW show and that's fine. Maybe some Broadway people also like transition and that's great. But if you just moved to LA to be an actor, you've got to be making stuff. Mm-hmm. Not right away. Like, go take some classes. Like, go to UCB and like figure out what you think is funny and meet people. And I also remember when I first got here, everyone was like, hey, the people that are like just as broke and just as unrepresented and confused as you are, that you're working with and hanging out with and going to parties with and taking classes with, like, those are your peers. You're going to come up with them, and in 5 years, like, some of them are going to be running studios, or not running them, but the executives at like Comedy Central or whatever. You're going to hire each other, or you're going to be making shows and putting each other on shows. And I remember hearing people saying that and kind of believing them and being like, yeah, but also like, this 22-year-old kid I hang out with is a mess, and how are any of us ever going to be anything?
Right.
And now it's starting to happen this year, really. A lot of my friends are like selling pilots to Showtime. And it's just like, oh, that does happen. Like, you have a peer group you come up with.
Yeah.
So I would say, like, just get involved. Like, just like jump into stuff, take a lot of classes, make stuff with people, build relationships with people that you like, not just for networking. Networking's bullshit. That's not real. Like, don't just try to sell yourself.
Right.
Just like build real relationships, and then do cool stuff with those people, and those people will continue to do cool stuff, and so will you.
Right. There's an episode of the podcast recently. I'm not sure if it was one with Topi Morell, but there was one where we were talking about being a good person and easy to work with, and how that's going to help you get further in your career. That doesn't mean that, we didn't mean that at the expense of actually being able to create and do work. We are meaning, if you can create and do work, be someone others would want to work with. Right?
Yeah.
No one's going to hire you because you're a nice person. They're going to hire you because you can do the work and you're a nice person, and they can see themselves doing the work with you.
That is like the magical combo. It's like, I think there's 3 parts. It's the being someone that's really, really creative and always getting better and always trying stuff, treating people very well, being a good person, and just nonstop hustling business-wise, I guess. But yeah, you have to have both of those things to really have longevity, I think, from what I've seen.
How are you hustling? Because I hear people say that, and sometimes I wonder exactly. I mean, obviously they're meaning work hard, but what does that look like? A disaster. It's like, taking a lot of classes is part of the thing. And then I just, when I first moved here, I did a ton of self-submitting. Like, do you guys have actor databases there where you submit yourself for like smaller projects, web series, student films, stuff like that? There's a national one that the agency I'm with is partnered with.
That's cool. Yeah, like there's LA Casting and Actors Access. Actors Access is really the one out here where you like create a profile, and then people that are doing lower budget stuff, non-union commercials, USC student films, short films, web series, things that have like no real studio or production behind them, just like people creating stuff, and you go audition for them. There were a lot of weird auditions, like in people's apartments and things that were shady because it's not super regulated. So that's something you have to be careful about.
Right.
But like just like I did a ton of student films at like good film schools like USC and UCLA. And then, you know, you're in your friend's web series, you make a web series, you write. I wrote my own pilot. I'm working on a second pilot. I, you know, read every book on writing, spent a year just like trying to teach myself how to write. Took a lot of classes, go to a lot of shows. I'm obsessed with autobiography, so I read everybody's autobiography. And I think just like trying to absorb like how it all works and getting better yourself. And, you know, you like build your own website and you show up to things and ask people that are better than you, like if you can ask them advice about stuff, and read a lot and perform a lot. Like all of that is just like constant. And then I think there's a different kind of hustling when you get signed and you get agents that are really behind you and they want you to sell stuff. Then there's like trying to write the thing that you can sell, but not trying to be, you know, guided by what will sell, and trying to like stay creative about it and like not hate yourself the whole time. And like some days are a wash where you just get high and like binge watch something because you're a weirdo artist person. And then some days are like 13-hour work days, and it's just bonkers.
Yeah. How do you on a 13-hour work day, how do you maintain relationships? Friends and family and romantic relationships. I'm not trying to be like, how do you keep a wife?
In the closet. It's a good question because I don't really know that I know the answer to that yet, because I'm just starting to get busy. And I mean, you go through phases. Like I was really busy at some points last year and really bored at some points. But
it's going to be a beautiful house.
Closer?
That one did sound louder. It sounds like they turned up volume.
Yeah. Oh God. He's like coming towards my hedges, I can tell. Like my fiance is a writer, and so we both have an understanding of like needing to be independent and creative and have our own space and like be weirdos. And then we can also talk about the industry a lot together and support each other. So I don't know how I would do it with someone that's not in the industry and didn't kind of get how crazy making it is. With family, it's definitely weird. Like, I think because there's so much anxiety in this industry, like so much of it is being on, right? Like I'm going to a lot of auditions or meetings, or you're pitching something, or you're getting coffee with a friend or a director or whoever, and you're like on all the time, or you're making something. And then I'm sure other people are different, but I'm on, and then I won't talk to people for like 3 days, and I'm just in my house and like can't handle it. And I'm sure I'll get better at that. But I think a lot of my friends and family are starting to be like, whoa, I haven't heard from you. And I'm like, yeah, I work. Then I get super anxious about the work and can't see anybody. And then I kind of emerge again. And it's like this weird cycle.
I think it's a good thing for people to hear. It's hard to tell people that directly. So I'm glad that they're hearing that on the podcast.
Yeah, maybe this will save some relationships in my life, Jason.
Yes. When I started the There It Is podcast, I was like, let's save some relationships.
Well, there it is. We've done it.
Yeah. I hate to say this is the end of the interview, but we've been on for a while. I guess we do have to end.
What's your average interview time? What do you normally...
I was telling people I wanted the podcast to be 30 to 45 minutes. Have done like one or two that are that length. Most of them have been around an hour.
I feel like, honestly, 30 is probably, like, you can't really get into the meat of it if it's just 30.
Right.
45 to an hour, love it.
Right. But now we're approaching an hour. So,
Great.
Unfortunately, I'm
so proud of us, though.
I really love this chat. But now it is time to end the interview with something that we can create together. I don't know what that would be, though. Would it be a web series idea, or?
Oh, interesting. We did talk a lot about web series. Well, first of all, I think something was already created in Ayden, and like that's pretty amazing. Maybe we need to come up with your name.
Ooh. Well, my name's Jason Farr. Everyone always wanted to just call me by my last name and not give me a nickname.
People always call you Far, like Far Out. Do they call you Far Out?
A lot of people say Far Out. When I was in college, there were a bunch of Jasons in the fraternity when I joined, and so they were just
What
going by.
fraternity were you in?
I was in Kappa Sigma at Winthrop University, which is an important distinction to make because we were following all the rules.
Kappa Sig. Oh my god.
Unlike certain other chapters, we were following the rules of Kappa Sigma, and I believe
You were like
that
good
stayed
guys.
true. Right, we were nice guys.
Not to say that Kappa Sig is inherently bad, but like.
No, Kappa Sigma is not inherently bad. I have just heard some bad stories about chapters that don't exist anymore.
Yes,
And anyone who knows who's at big schools, at one of those schools, I wasn't in a Kappa Sigma like that. I was in Kappa Sigma, not Kappa Sig.
Oh, I get it. Yeah.
I was
totally.
in a fraternity, not a frat. I'll put it that way.
Oh, great distinction.
Right.
I totally understand.
So I say all that just to say there were a ton of Jasons, and we were going by last names. And one day I said, I need a nickname. And the guy was like, no, Far. That's your nickname. So I don't have a nickname.
I mean, Far is dope, though, I will say.
I like it. But if I always wondered what my nickname would be if someone was just trying to throw something out there.
I mean, do you go by J Far? Because that's like Jafar.
Yeah. My cousin,
you hate
his
that?
name is Jay, and my brother's name is Joe, so people always called them Jafar.
Oh, man.
So
I'm just like
I don't get that one either.
Heavily treaded territory right now.
Listen, but also, like, Jafar was the bad guy in Aladdin, so I don't want to be him.
Which is so cool.
No.
You want to be Aladdin. I get it. Wait, what is your ethnicity, by the way? Speaking of Aladdin.
Oh, I'm black, but I'm light-skinned, so people think that I am
like
Hispanic or Latin, or like one of my parents is white, or someone has said I could pull off Middle Eastern.
Yeah, because I'm Persian, and I thought maybe you had a spice of that.
Well, I apparently have made a lot of people think that just by them looking at me.
Yeah.
A lot of people, I get Latin
People
a lot.
think I'm Italian.
Oh,
yeah.
I could kind of see that. But I knew it was, I guess because I knew your name, I knew it was going to be Persian and not Italian.
Yeah, you get it.
Do you get Princess Jasmine a lot?
I do, and I have a character reel where I'm like Princess Jasmine, who like moved to LA to get another movie deal and it ends up on heroin and like prostituting herself.
Oh, I think
and then that sketch came out on SNL, and I was like, damn it.
Well, let's see. Let's make
if we were to have a web series, you and I.
Yes. Yeah. If we were making a web series, it could be Ayden and Jafar.
It could be Ayden and Jafar, or it could be Far a Ayden. Far a Yay. Sounds like it's about coke.
I really want this to happen now, so if I come out to LA, we'll have to make this.
I mean, yeah. When are you coming?
I don't know, but one day. I mean, I'm going New York, so I don't know. But one day.
Wait, like, side note, when are you moving to New York?
End of February.
Oh my God, that's to pursue comedy, yeah?
Yeah, and acting work too. Thank you.
That's so exciting. That's what you gotta do.
Yeah. And then I will get to the place where I can create a web series with you.
Yeah.
Or at least we could dress up as Princess Jasmine and Jafar.
See, that's
I
really
will be Princess
fun.
Jasmine.
Yeah. What if you're Jafar, I'm Princess Jasmine, and our web series is just us talking to each other over Skype in closets?
I suppose we could do it that way too. Yeah, Jafar keeps contacting Princess Jasmine, and she keeps answering the Skype calls.
Right, it's like Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky having like secret conversations.
Well, there it is.
There it is.
Thanks
Is
so
that
much
what you
for
do?
being on. Yeah.
You say there it is. That's great. I love it. How cool. Thanks so much for having me. This was super fun.
Oh, I had a great time. I think I'd like to have you on again. I've not made a rule about not having people on a second time, but I enjoyed talking to you so much I'd like to have you on a second time one day.
Great. I'd love to get in before that rule goes into effect.
And that's my buddy Ayden, everybody. Ayden. She was super fun, right? We had a great time chatting even off air, just laughing a ton, just goofing around. It was a really fun talk. I do need to have her on again. It's funny. I've had a dear friend on this podcast in Toby Morrell, and this is the first time that I've been like, oh, I should have this person on again. They were so fun to talk to. But that's because Toby's stupid. Toby's great. So is Ayden. Why don't you check her out tonight on New Girl on Fox at 8:30. You can also check out her website, aydenmayeri.com. That's AYDEN, Mayer, like John, I.com. You can also see her reels and get to her social media accounts on her website. Why don't you go to thereitispod.com if you haven't already. You can support the podcast, you can engage in the blogs, and you can find old episodes. It'll be much appreciated. I hope you have their-itis. I hope you do. Well, that's it for now. We have a fun episode next week, so do check that out. I'm Jason Farr. Until next time, be good to each other.
The music for the theme song was created by Neil Brooks. The rap was written and performed by Nick Acevedo. The logo for There It Is was created by Jeff Prater. The There It Is podcast is produced by Jason Farr.